It's October the 20th, 2022 at 1:11 p.m. here locally in southern Arizona. Boy, do I have a cool, short story to share. About a week and a half ago, on the 10th of October, I was out on one of my morning walks. I was footing it down a less traveled dirt path, and a dog runs up to me. I have never seen this dog before, but it was just a delight. It just was saying hello, 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 and wanted to be petted. So I accommodated. Within, say, a minute or two later, its owner came walking down the path. I guess the dog had just bolted out, and because this isn't a well-known path, I guess he didn't expect anybody to be coming the other way. So, of course, we started to talk. Him telling me he was on a spiritual morning walk, which he did most days. And I told him I found that surprising because I had been in this particular location for 3 seasons in a row, and that I'd never seen him before. And he goes, "That's funny because I've never seen you either, and I go out every day." So we laughed about the fact that we have both been doing the same thing in the same area for a really long time, but have never run into each other. Of course, he was a local, however, and I'm not. I'm a traveler. And one thing led to another, and he asked if I would go with them in their direction, just for a while to, as he said, make his pup happy. He said he found you, so, let's give him the benefit of the experience. And I said, all right, I'm into it. And we began to talk. And by that, I mean he talked. He was extremely astute, a physicist, and I love talking to people who have that level of knowledge, as long as they're willing to share. But I learned that he had some interesting associations with companies and organizations he worked with during his lifetime, and we focused a lot more on that. One thing led to another, and he started telling me stories that really edged on the precipice of regular concepts of reality. And I thought, hot damn, just my kind of conversation. Not telling him yet, I live this otherworldly kind of experience and have for many years, because I have been experimenting for the sole purpose to understand and better relate to, let's say, the more of things. Eventually, he asked me how I felt about some of the things he was saying. And I said, well, I am really not someone who speaks about my personal beliefs, but I can tell you that I find what you're saying very interesting, and I feel like I can relate to it in many ways. So keep talking. So I avoided answering his question, but kind of gave him a backwards compliment so that he happily continued. We walked for probably 2 miles, almost to where I needed to turn off if I wasn't going to go too far out of my area, and we were headed in the wrong direction. But of course I didn't want to say that to him. I basically said, I have some things to do. Thank you for the generous share and the delightful conversation, and I'll see you on the other side of the cosmos. And he said, well, can we do it again? And then we finally got to a topic that, let's just say, I will touch upon, but not go into too much detail about. And that is one's ability through the concept of quantum entanglement to connect, let's say, energy to energy, or mind to mind, or consciousness to consciousness, through frequency matching, let's call it that. So that, just like tuning a radio, if you go to a certain station, you're going to receive whatever is at that station. And when he got onto that topic, I kind of was shocked, because I had a friend that I know for sure, because of a couple of experiments that this individual was willing to participate in over the stretch of the last, let's say, 5.5 years. And that's the only person that I ever had that level of connection with. But not another person, at least to the best of my awareness. And I have tried. I've done specific experiments with specific individuals, and yet it never worked out. Well, at his request, we decided to give it a try. What we would do, in essence, was he tried it first several times, and then I tried it this last time, and every single time we had success. We tried different methods. There's no reason to go into all of them, but I'll give you an example. Before we would depart, if it was his turn, he would attempt to transmit something to me, and in front of me, he would write down on a little, first he started with just a scratch piece of paper he just happened to have in his pocket. It was a receipt from a local drugstore, and he didn't even have a pen, but he had this little, it was like chalk or charcoal or something, and he was able to utilize it enough to put it down on the ground and put an impression on it that of course I couldn't see, but then he brushed dust over it, rubbed his hand over it, so that ultimately the dust stayed on that impression. Kind of like if you take a pencil on a piece of paper and you lightly brush over it so that you can see what the person wrote underneath, which was a big thing in the detective stories of like the 40s. It was like that, but it was done organically with just whatever we had around, mostly, sandy gravel and a drugstore receipt and this little pointed stone or whatever it was he had in his pocket. And he said, okay, I've written it down. I'm going to leave it here. And literally what we did was we found a giant rock and we put it under the rock so that, neither one of us could effectively tamper with it and nobody could easily see it, and that we would meet there the next day. And all I was supposed to do was just be myself. We agreed on how we would attempt to connect using frequency matching. So the first day we met, and I just told him outright, and he had his handheld recorder, which was his iPhone, going to capture it all. And I told him my experience and what my findings were, what I thought might be underneath that rock. And he pulled it out. And if I said blue and you said navy, wouldn't those be close enough? It was like that. If I said collie and you said dog, isn't that close enough? That kind of thing. And I told him about the limited yet positive interactions I'd had with this one other individual. And I asked him if he had ever had it, and he said that he had tried and tried, that he had had no specific results that he could catalog as evidence, but nothing like this ever. So he said, let's do it again. And we did it the exact same way, even using the exact same rock, met the next day, and poof, same results. So we were both pretty excited. And this time I said, let me try. I wrote something on a piece of paper, and I tried to even go to a slightly different frequency than we'd agreed on, because I felt it was more of a sender's frequency than a receiver's frequency, in the way that I have been experimenting with them over the years. And sure enough, just the other day, in the morning, I met him at the same place. This time we picked a different rock, though, because we wanted to try a different vibe, a different location, to see if it was location-based or just between us, hone in on specifically what was it. Was it our energy alone? Was it the location? Was it the weather? Was it the tools we were using? What was it? Again, amazing success. Now for me, what I enjoyed about this the most was the simple fact that he found me. And by that I mean the pup, because I think the pup was the vehicle to bring two people who had been walking the same terrain off and on for over 3 years and never run into each other. But when we did, we found this immediate connection. He found me. This guy really wants to do this. It's friendship, it's camaraderie. We're not even near the same age, but it works. And I finally have someone that I can go to the next chapter with. And that's exactly what it feels like. The page is turned, and in that process, this new experience has been born. And I can't wait to find out what happens next.